So with Rainbow Six Siege having a large roster of different characters to choose from, way more than your average shooter, it isn't surprising that some operators don't really find their place in the game. And on the other hand, some operators are a bit too strong. Well, it seems like Ubisoft are aware of this, and they have labeled a few operators in particular who they are going to seemingly rework, whether that is to a small or large extent, we don't know yet. But I thought it'd be interesting to share these operators with you, in which Ubisoft had labeled that they are prototyping solutions to make them feel balanced and worthy, their own words. And we can sort of look at these operators together and theorize what they're going to do to these operators, because some operators in this list will probably get a much larger rework than others. Now, I just want to quickly say before we continue, it's almost the end of the year and we are 400 subs away from 100k. So if we can hit this by the end of the year and you're watching this right now, hit that sub button. We're so close. Now, before we continue with this list, I'm going to remove two operators from it. And those two operators which are on Ubisoft's list is Ayana and Warden. Now, the reason why I'm removing these two operators from the list is that those operators have already been balanced since the time Ubisoft posted this list. Ayana lost her grenades, and grenades have also been toned down, and Warden has been made a 1-speed, and it definitely does feel like those operators are both in a better position, and they're not too weak, and they're not too strong. I think they're both in a great position, and I think Ubisoft are done touching them for the time being. However, the operators that remain on this list, which I agree with, do need changing, and I'm glad Ubisoft are prototyping stuff for them, is Azami, Solis, Blackbeard, and finally, Recruit. Right, let's start with Blackbeard, because I know Blackbeard has always been a black sheep in Rainbow Six Siege, no pun intended, pretty much ever since he came out. Even with us 8 years into the game, having Ubisoft say that they don't feel right in the moment. And I made a video about Blackbeard like a year ago, and I said something in it which it seems like not a lot of people perceived the way I wanted them to perceive it. That might have just been me saying it poorly. But basically, what I said is that Blackbeard is in a position where he'll never be balanced. If you personally are not very good at aiming, then Blackbeard will never be a good operator for you, because he utilizes the fact that you can block a one-shot headshot. If you're not utilizing that edge that he gives you purely because you're not good at aiming, then Blackbeard sucks for you. He's never going to be good for you. Then on the flip side, if you are extremely good at aiming and you're using that little edge that Blackbeard gives you to block a one-shot headshot in a one-shot headshot game, then he's going to be a bit overpowered. And then you may be saying, well, him blocking a one-shot headshot is the point of his gadget, so the fact that that is working is good. But you have to remember, when an operator is only good for 0.1% of the player base, and that 0.1% of the player base don't even play him anyway, then what's the point? If you've watched my streams on my Twitch, Kudos R6, go drop a follow, you know that I play Blackbeard quite a bit, and I get that little edge with him. But his gadget does leave something to desire. So when it comes to Blackbeard, I genuinely don't know what they do other than just completely changing his gadget. I've had people say that Blackbeard should maybe have like warding goggles, basically, so he can be immune to flashbangs and push on them, which would allow him to synergize with smoke plants and sens as well, which would be pretty cool. But they could do a number of things with Blackbeard. I think, unfortunately, the biggest thing that stopped Blackbeard in this game from advancing was actually Osa. Osa's gadget would have been a perfect rework for Blackbeard. It keeps a lot of the fundamentals they were going for with him. However, they prioritized it for a new operator, which I don't blame them. They'll make more money off a new operator than they will reworking an old one, which people already have. And I still think the best way to have a Blackbeard rework nowadays is the concept I talked about a year ago, which was actually based off of an early design of Blackbeard. This was an official design of Blackbeard before his current iteration, in which he had a rifle shield, but it wasn't ballistic glass. It just seemed to be ballistic metal, which you couldn't see through. However, it would only protect the side of your head and not the front. This means when you're aiming down your sight, your head is protected at both sides, but it's not protected face down where you're aiming. That means if you take a face-to-face gunfight with another player, you're both at risk of the one-shot headshot mechanic. But if you're using Blackbeard with this version of the rifle shield, if you're in a window, for example, and you're holding the left angle, that means if anyone swings from the right, your head's going to be protected. This would mean that Blackbeard is very good for window plays, because his sides are protected. However, if you get on a face-on gunfight with him, it still comes down to who is the better player. I think that's an interesting idea, and I think that would somewhat balance him across the board. because then he would become the ultimate window player. Right, let's look at Azami next. Azami is possibly one of the biggest game-changing defenders we have ever gotten in the game. That is what Ubisoft set out to do with Azami. They've done it perfectly. And despite Azami being as strong as she is, she can be the difference between a round win and a round loss. She has not received any changes since her launch all the way back at the beginning of year 7. She's still just as strong as she was when she launched. Now, a big issue with Azami is just how much utility it takes to clear. A common Azami setup will be in piano on the map Cafe Dostoevsky to slow down a push on red. One of the best counters to Azami is Flores, and even if you can get past the Solis, the Mozzie, the mute jammers, and get your Flores drones into piano, the moment you blow up a Kiba barrier, she displaces another one anyway. It's the fact that she is such a utility dump and brings so much for the defenders. So unless Ubisoft, give an extra bullet to the gun 6, give us another attacker which is way more easier at clearing Kiba barriers, Azami will always take quite a bit of effort to clear. And I think Ubisoft can kind of go down 2 routes with Azami. The first route is just take away a few Kiba barriers. Maybe make it that she only has 3 total, for example. That means you can still use Azami the way you're using her right now, just not to the full extent. I'd be perfectly fine with leaving her gadget as it is, and just taking a few off her. Maybe even remove impact grenades as well. Or if they wanted to go further down the route of a major rework, you could add some form of degradation to her Kiba barriers, meaning that a Kiba barrier will only last for 15 or 10 seconds, and then it starts to crumble and break naturally. This means rather than setting a bunch of Kiba barriers up during the prep phase, you have to hold them in your pocket and only use them when it's vital for cutting off a line of sight. Enemies are about to push sight and they're holding down a line of sight. You throw down a Kiba barrier, allow your teammates to get the position back once again. This would still keep Azami extremely relevant to the game because you're still using her to regain control, and it would be very effective at doing that. There would just be a time window of how long they last, meaning that you can't rely on them for the entire round like you currently can. I think that would be quite an interesting way to use her gadget, and I definitely think that would make her way more balanced because then she's no longer a utility dump the attackers have to waste a bunch of utility on. And another little rework they could do is add a health bar to the Kiba barriers. Rather than it only being explosives that can destroy it, or sledgehammers for example, bullets could destroy them, but it would have to be a certain amount of bullets, like 3/4 of a magazine of a DMR for example. The more you shoot it, the more it starts to crack like it currently does, and then it will be completely destroyed. This would give attackers way more different ways to clear Kiba barriers, and they would still be useful for the defensive team because in that time you can reposition, and just like the whole degradation thing, it would make Azami use her Kiba barriers more strategically when she needs to use them, rather than just chucking them down in the prep phase. Judging by the fact that she hasn't really had any nerfs at all since she came out, yet has been highlighted as a very strong, basically overpowered operator, it does lead me to believe that when they are saying that she is on this list for changes, that it is going to be something a little bit bigger. And I definitely think degradation over time will fit Azami much more, and will make her an operator that uses her gadget when it needs to be used, rather than just dumping it down and, here's a cover, here's a line of sight block now. I definitely like that idea for Azami's changes. Next up, we have Solis. Solis is an operator which I think just wasn't planned out very well. The concept is simple enough. She is basically a version of IQ on defense. Heck, in the lore itself, her gadget is made from a prototype that Mirror was developing for IQ as an upgrade. However, IQ left Rainbow to join Nighthaven, and Solis and Flores took this prototype and made the current version of Solis's goggles. If attackers have an operator that can see all the electronic gadgets, why shouldn't defense? And in the action phase, I think that's fine. You can see someone's on their phone there, you can see that someone is placing a thermite charge there. It's pretty cool to have that on defense. However, the major issue with Solis is the fact that you can use her in the prep phase. The prep phase has always been this sacred phase in the game in which no one can really affect. The only operator that could really do something different in the prep phase used to be Twitch, since she spawned in with her shock drone in the prep phase instead of a standard drone. However, they changed that when attacker repick was added to the game, because then people would just play Twitch for the drone, then switch off her last second. The prep phase has always been defenders can set up their sight and shoot drones, and attackers can gain intel. No one was ever allowed to put a wrench in that. And a big thing that the attackers were doing in the prep phase was put their drones in certain locations, so when the action phase would start, members of the attacking team can go on those cams and guarantee a safe safe entrance into the building for their teammates. However, that is when Solis was added and basically ruined everything. You can't pre-place drones in the prep phase when there's a Solis on the board. She'll simply find it and destroy it. The fact that she can easily hunt down drones in the prep phase is just fundamentally against what the prep phase is. I don't think operators should have an effect like this in the prep phase. I don't even think Solis's gadget needs a massive change other than them just removing it from the prep phase in general. Just don't allow her to access her gadget until the prep phase is over. It's simply way too oppressive for the attacking team who can't fight back in this phase. And I don't think they should add an attacker that can fight back in this prep phase, because then you're just opening Pandora's box of issues in the prep phase. The prep phase should just be a sacred phase which shouldn't have oppressive operators like this, especially when you can't do anything about it. For attack, it should be them getting their drones in the building and gaining intel, and for defense, it should be setting up the sites. If someone wants to hunt for drones, they should be able to do it, but they shouldn't have this massive crutch operator of Solis showing the exact location of all of it. Because if you're going against one competent Solis player, it just makes gaining intel, a massive part of the attack in this game, impossible. So yeah, they honestly don't even need to change her gadget that much. Just remove its access in the prep phase. That's all you have to do. If you want to do other stuff, you could just make it that her gadget only does a ping sweep and she can't view through it. But I think she's honestly fine in the action phase when she uses her gadget. I don't feel like Solis is oppressive in the action phase at all. I think when I get ran out on when I'm on my phone and the Solis scans me, I think that's pretty cool. I think, okay, that's that operator doing her part. Or she stops a plant from below. Again, that's just the operator doing her thing. It's cool. But the fact that she can hunt down every drone in the prep phase is just bullshit. And it fundamentally just goes against the rules of the game. Just remove the prep phase access. That's all you have to do. Right, so the final operator on this list is Recruit. I think Recruit is very simple. Just bump him up to the status of operator. Heck, you could even make it like a customizable character with different faces, so we could have our own recruits. You could have female recruits. You can change their name. You could do that aspect if you really want to. Don't mind if you do that or not. I think it could be pretty cool, but they don't have to. But bump him up to operator status. Give him full customization, so he can change his headgear, weapon skins, uniform, all that jazz. Give him an elite skin if you wanted to. But his gadget is very simple for how he would work in rank. The same way his gadget works right now. Just allow Recruit to have 2 secondary gadgets. Are you telling me right now Recruit, with the option of having a secondary hard breach in one slot and secondary EMP nades in the second slot, would be bad? That could be insanely strong. Oh, they've got a Kaze and all the hatches are reinforced. Okay, someone bring Recruit, bring EMPs and hard breach, and you can clear that all yourself. If you're going to play vertical, you could bring claymores and a breaching charge so you can make all the holes in the floor and have your flanked watch as well. Now with Recruit getting a bump up to operator status, you would of course only be able to bring one at a time. And I think that'd be very good, because that means every time a new secondary gadget gets added to the attacking team, or a new secondary gadget gets buffed, for example, that means Recruit in turn would also get buffed with it. I don't know what you'd do with his loadout. I guess you could just keep it the same way and have it as certain weapons allowed. Can't imagine they'd allow every weapon to be an option. I think that's just too strong. But definitely have it as it is right now, as you have an option for like maybe an SMG, an AR, a shotgun for example, and an LMG. Of course, this would work on the defense as well. I was just talking about attack there. But you could have a Recruit bring a bulletproof camera and a observation blocker. Place the bulletproof camera all the way at the back of sight, have some observation blockers in front of it, synergize him with a maestro for example, and you've got a bunch of bulletproof cams in sight. Bring a shield and some barbed wire, put this barbed wire on the stairs, put the shield at the top, boom, you've just held down the staircase now as Recruit. Bring an ADS or something to protect it. Having an operator bring 2 secondary gadgets is very strong and is also very unique, and it would warrant Recruit being a big operator who can be played in ranked. That's actually one of my biggest wants from this game, is Recruit being playable in ranked as a full-time operator, because having those 2 gadgets is very useful. But yes, those are the 4 operators in which Ubisoft have highlighted, which will be getting some changes and reworks in the near future. Let me know which one you're most excited for to get changes. Of course, the changes I listed are just theories. They haven't specifically told us what they're doing, but hopefully we learn more in the near future. So be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy, subscribe if you're new. I shall catch you all later. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.